Say hello and thank you for joining Cadre's webinar on Preparing for Dispute Resolution, Cadre's Parent Dispute Resolution Resource Showcase. Today's webinar is one in a continuing series of Cadre webinars. You'll notice our presenter today is Cadre's very own Phil Moses. Philip serves as Cadre's Assistant Director, and in that capacity, quite frankly, has his finger in just about everything that we do. Phil works to help manage Cadre's full range of activities, including our use of advanced technology, as well as traditional means to provide technical assistance to State Department of Education, to parents, educators, professionals, program administrators, attorneys, and advocates, ensuring that to the maximum extent possible, people benefit from the full continuum of conflict resolution options that can prevent and resolve conflict. Many of you have known Phil for the more than 14 years that he's been here. It might interest you to know that prior to coming and joining us at Cadre, he was coordinator of the program on public policy dispute resolution at the Government Law Center of Albany Law School, where he was also an adjunct faculty member teaching courses on mediation and alternative dispute resolution. He served as president of the New York State Dispute Resolution Association from 1995 to 1997. Phil completed his MA in Political Science with a graduate certificate in conflict resolution through the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs at Syracuse University, and holds several other certificates in the field. Among his many activities, between 1996 and 2011, Phil chaired 8 national conferences, including 6 on behalf of Cadre. So without any further ado, let me introduce our Assistant Director, my friend and teacher, Phil Moses.
Thank you, Marshall, and it's a delight to be on the phone with all of you today. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are sitting right now. And it's a treat to do, this is the first webinar I've ever done. Many of you know me from workshops or presentations you've been involved with around the country. And I might note that yesterday I had the opportunity to fly down to California and do mediation training with the California special ed mediators, and that entailed taking 3 airplane rides to get there and 2 to get home last night around midnight. So it was a 20-hour road trip, if you will. And so today, all I had to do was get here to the office, and I get an opportunity to kind of reach out to an even broader audience. So again, thank you for joining us. We want to share with you our new Parent Resource Showcase, and before we do that, we're going to give you a little bit of background or some of the genesis in terms of how we arrived at creating this showcase. And so this dates to the early, a few years ago, in the early part of our present funding cycle, and during this period, you can see now on the screen our OSEP priority to identify and document, in collaboration with national and regional parent TA centers, the information needs of parents and families, and in particular the information needs related to the full range of dispute resolution processes and practices that are available around the country. And we're going to show you the Cadre Continuum here of processes and practices. We know that probably most of you are familiar with this model, but we just want to touch on it for a couple of minutes because it will help explain much of what's behind the showcase. And for those of you who haven't seen this model before, hopefully you'll find it informative in terms of understanding the emerging, increasing, expanding landscape of dispute resolution and special education and early intervention. And we could spend the entire webinar just talking about this continuum, but we don't have that luxury today. But the continuum came about 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, when Cadre began to understand that the reality of dispute resolution in special ed was much bigger than the world of IDEA and what it required in terms of mediation, written state complaints, due process hearings. And as we searched around the country and did research, we began to understand that there was really a range of dispute resolution activity that many states were offering, that locals were offering. And this range of activity started in the early stages, or even in the prevention stages, things like stakeholder training, giving educators, professionals, family members the skills and knowledge to be able to communicate and negotiate more effectively. That there were a variety of what we described as disagreement levels. So as things between the school and family started to percolate a little bit around a disagreement, that there were options that included things like a parent-to-a-parent assistance program, or telephone intermediaries, where an individual would be on the phone and perhaps talk to the family, talk to the school, and then give them some information, perhaps do some informal problem solving. Under stage 3 here, you'll see the conflict stage, where probably things between the family and the school have escalated, and there's some perhaps serious disagreement or dispute around the educational services. And here we see a range of activities that include things like Iep facilitation, IFSP facilitation. Many of you know that this is expanding considerably around the country. And there's other models, different models of mediation that are different than what IDEA requires, solution teams or team approaches to mediation that we find in some of the SELPAs in California. There's third-party opinion practices, the use of early neutral evaluation settlement conferences in which a third-party expert would provide a non-binding or advisory opinion. And you'll note here the procedural safeguards, which since 2004 essentially include the resolution meeting or resolution sessions. Now, one thing we want to note about special ed conflicts and understanding the stages, that it's not necessary that any particular matter start in stage 1 and work their way through. We know that oftentimes a family or even a school might invoke a procedural safeguard, perhaps submit a written state complaint, only to be referred to an earlier process, a more informal process to try to resolve it early on. And we know from looking at the data that the vast majority of due process complaints are resolved without a hearing. They're resolved through mediation, through IEP facilitation, through resolution meetings and other options. Now, all of these things to the left are optional dispute resolution options, and yet Cadre encourages states to make investments in these, what we sort of refer to as upstream options. We encourage them to do that, and we're encouraged by the number of states that are actually doing that. And in fact, in some states, you will find an option available across the entire continuum, that they really view having a range of dispute resolution options available to families and schools critical to a whole dispute resolution system that serves many different needs. And some of you may be familiar with the phrase fitting the form to the fuss, and that's what states who have a range of options can do. They can best sort a matter into the form that best serves the needs of the people and the issues at hand. Now, at the bottom of the continuum here, you'll note a bunch of dimensions. These are, there's 4 listed here, but we could probably list many other dimensions that help sort these different processes along the continuum. Third-party assistance, third-party intervention. As we move from the left to the right, the role of a third-party neutral shifts a bit from being a helper to somebody who ultimately, as we move far to the right, becomes a decision maker. And beneath that dimension, you'll see the decision-making by parties, decision-making by a third party. So as we move from the left to the right, the onus of decision-making will shift away from the family and the school to a third-party neutral. And ultimately, when we get to a written state complaint or a due process hearing, decision-making is made by a complaint investigator or a hearing officer. So to the extent we can stay to the left, decision-making is made by those most impacted by those decisions. The third dimension here, interest-based versus rights-based, is we move from the left or upstream options to the downstream options. Typically what we see is a shift from the underlying interests, the underlying needs of the child ultimately, but it may be the underlying needs of the other family members, of professionals and service providers, and to rights-based decisions. What does the law have to say about this matter, and applying the law to it? And so to the extent we can, again, stay to the left, we can really focus on the underlying needs of those affected. And again, the fourth dimension here, informal and flexible versus formal and fixed, as we move from the left to the right, these processes, become much more fixed and formalized, and the participants have much less control over both the process, who the third-party neutral is. So you lose the ability to control what kind of process is being used to resolve a matter. We could probably add additional dimensions, things like cost. Typically, as you move from the upstream options on the left to the downstream options on the right, the downstream options become much more costly. I don't think anybody would argue with the idea that a due process hearing is far more likely to be an expensive process as compared to something like a telephone intermediary or Iep facilitation. So this is a snapshot, if you will, a window into the world of special ed dispute resolution. And there's lots of variations on the theme, and many of these lines are not hard and fixed, but a little blurry. And how we call things, we might label things differently, but in practice they may look very similar. Now, I mentioned our priority to identify and document the needs of parents and families. And Cadre did that through a number of means. We convened focus groups, particularly at the regional parent technical assistance meetings. We looked at the types of technical assistance requests that Cadre would receive. We spoke to everybody from advisory board members to other experts in the field. We used a variety of needs assessment or needs sensing methods to understand what can we do to serve the needs of families and parents in terms of preparing for dispute resolution processes. And the last piece of that was creating a parent center survey. And so here, this is some results of that survey, which came out a couple of years ago. We sent this to the staff of all the federally funded parent centers, both PTIs and CPRCs, and asked for their feedback. And so this slide shows you the response rate. It was rather high, and we received 97 responses. You can see the number of center directors, program directors, trainer, educators on down in terms of who responded to the survey. And this information was critical in helping us move forward. So the next slide here, this is one of the questions. Please rank order the following topics from most useful to least in terms of brochure video development. Historically, Cadre has worked with the Technical Assistance Alliance of Parent Centers and other national organizations to develop resources that were useful to family members and educators, and that included short guidebooks, FAQs, and videos. And so here you can see the questions, information about how to prepare for different dispute resolution processes, for parents on working effectively, respectfully with schools and other agencies. This is actually a rank ordering of the results. I should be clear about that. So the number one result was information on how to prepare for processes. The second most highly ranked item was for parents on working effectively, respectfully with schools and other agencies. The third, for professionals on working effectively and respectfully with parents. The fourth ranked item was short descriptions of the options, and fifth ranked item, culturally competent dispute resolution resources. And then we asked a similar question to rank order options in terms of other resource development, and here are the results. Number one was worksheets or checklists that will help families to prepare for more productive IEP, IFSP meetings. The second one was similar items, worksheets or checklists that would help families to prepare for mediation. The third one was resolution meetings. The fourth one was a translation of short videos into Spanish, and for example, our listening videos, our position and interest videos, which are both available in Spanish now. And the fifth one, worksheets, checklists that will help professionals to prepare for more productive IEP, IFSP meetings. And the last question we asked had to do with languages, asking what were the languages that Parent Center staff were encountering when they worked with or interacting with family members across the country. And we were a bit surprised. Cadre historically has developed a number of Spanish language resources and have made them available, but we were really surprised with the range of languages that our colleagues at the parent centers are having to work with. And here you can see that this is the list of the most spoken languages: Arabic, Chinese, French, Haitian Creole, Hmong, Korean, Marshallese, Polish, Russian, Somalian, Tagalog, Vietnamese, and Yiddish. And that these are all languages that Parent Center staff work with at least monthly, if not weekly. And when we get to the Parent Center Showcase, we'll show you how now we actually have resources for not all of these languages, but Arabic, Chinese, Hmong, Korean, Somalian, and Vietnamese. You can find resources in each of those languages. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Cadre website and go live here. Hopefully the internet will cooperate. So this is the Cadre website, and one thing we want to point out here is that there are in fact two different resource showcases on our website. The one that I'm sort of pointing to now, this resource showcase here, is comprised largely of materials that come from state education agencies that address the full range of dispute resolution activity. I'll click on it real quick and open it up. So you can see here across the top of the continuum of dispute resolution processes, and then there's categories here along the left. I don't want to spend a lot of time. We've actually done work on this for you in the past, but we want to just illustrate that there is a different showcase that primarily looks at items that come from state education agencies that address the range of dispute resolution activity. Here is our parent dispute resolution showcase. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Now, we'll of course go a little bit deeper into it, but I want to explain some things. Now, one thing we know is that parents, family members, and professionals all benefit when they understand different dispute resolution processes and prepare for them effectively. The results are a smoother, a more effective use of the process, that the outcomes are better, more comprehensive agreements come out of those processes when people are well prepared, that we see better implementation of the different components of those agreements or the results of a different process. That people have a higher level of satisfaction with the process when they understand it and are well prepared for it. That many of these will help build a better relationship between family members and educators, professionals, and ultimately that better educational outcomes come out of these procedures or these processes when people are very well prepared. Now, that's one reason why, and this showcase really speaks to three audiences: individuals, parents, family members, and professionals. The second audience are parent centers, particularly the PTIs and CPRCs. This showcase allows them to learn what other centers are doing in relation to dispute resolution, and in many ways not have to recreate the wheel. They can learn and perhaps even borrow from other centers some of their materials. And the third audience, if you will, are educational systems. School systems can make better use of their dispute resolution options if both professionals and family members are effectively prepared for those procedures. And school systems can learn about this ever-expanding range of dispute resolution activity by visiting the showcase. Now, there are some caveats, some cautions we want to share with you. The contents of the showcase are in no way should be considered to be Part C, no way should be considered legal guidance or interpretation of IDA or any state laws or regulations. That you need to look elsewhere if you're looking for some legal support. The other caution is that there's considerable state variability. Not all options, particularly obviously the upstream options, are available in all states. And so that when you view an item from a particular state, it may not apply to the state that you live in. The showcase also may not represent all of the options that are in fact available in your state. And the third caution is that while we do our best to make sure that these materials are up to date, we are reliant upon the people who created the materials to help us with that, and many of the materials are online, and so there may sometimes web addresses change and this sort of thing. And in some cases, the items may not be accessible to the full range of people who have accessibility needs. So there's some cautions there to be aware of. Now, across the top, you'll see the range of dispute resolution activity that really mirrors what I showed you in the continuum. Prevention activities, things like stakeholder training, disagreement level stages, the parent engagement, early assistance. We see a column for IEP and IFSP and facilitation. And so I want to note that the items in this column are not only related to IEP facilitation. They're related to both better IEP, IFSP meetings, as well as the facilitation of those meetings. You'll note mediation, resolution meetings, written complaints, due process hearings, and then we have a system-wide column for items that actually refer to multiple processes. Now, if you click on any of these, you'll get a bit of a definition as to what we mean by this. This, again, is just to provide some background information about the process, in this case, perhaps facilitation of an IEP meeting, when it's best used, who might initiate it, some of the benefits and limitations of the process, a role of the third party, some time frames, some other background information. And so you'll find this for each of these. And again, it's not in any way considered to be legally interpretive of the law, but to give a brief bit of background information about the process, timelines, a sense of what that would look like to somebody who's considering it, the role of the third party, where the decision making is. So you can get information by clicking on any of these. I also might note that if you click on any of them and scroll to the bottom of that page, which has some definitional or explanatory information, on the very bottom you'll see the number of total items in that column, and if you were to click on it, all of the items in that column, in this case all of the items in the written state complaints column, would pop up. So that's what we have running along the top. Over here on the left are resource categories. We've done our best to sort of separate categories into ones we believe would be most useful and to differentiate different items. We have legal policy guidance materials, training materials, preparing for the process, brochures and fact sheets, videos and web-based items, and then resources for new parents. And some of the items in the showcase are cross-listed under a couple of different categories, particularly if it's under resources for new parents. It's probably cross-listed under another category. And we've tried to not over-categorize so that if you keep searching around the showcase, that you don't keep running into the same items over and over. Now, up here on the navigation bar, the default is here, everything that is in the showcase displays. And so that's the default, but we can filter in a number of ways. You can select the state, and right now you can see the range of states. States that are listed have at least one item in the showcase. Right now, 32 different states have an item listed. You can also filter. The default is Part B and C, but you can you can select Part B or C. If we select Part C and hit the get, then it'll refilter. You'll notice there's not a lot of Part C only items, and one of the things that Cadre is quite interested in is receiving more materials that speak only to the Part C, early intervention and dispute resolution processes. And we'll make another plea here at the end of the webinar for your help. And then here's a drop-down menu of languages. So obviously we have many things in English and a number of things in Spanish, but if there's at least one item in another language, we go ahead and add that language to the drop-down menu, and there's 10 languages there. And you can filter via language. You can also filter versus new or old. And we're having a couple minor technical bugs. This is a fairly new resource, and we're still working out some minor technical bugs with it. But one of the things we want to do is enable somebody who wanted to know what's been added to the showcase lately, that you could click new, and you would see a little. And I'm actually going to go here to due process hearings and legal policy guidance. I'm going to go click on that item. Now this is a display page of all the items in that cell. I'll just do that again quickly, finding the junction. There's 6 items on there. I click it. Now all the items are listed. And what you'll see right here, next to our friends in the Bay Area, you'll see the golden seal of to the item, so that you could, over time, if you just were curious about what is new in the showcase, you could come to it, click new, and get all of those items. So as we dig a little deeper into the showcase, I'm going to probably start on the right and maybe work our way to the left. Again, if we click on any of these categories, you'll see that's displayed. And I missed one other filter option. That was organization. So if an organization has an item listed in here, you can see all of those organizations listed, and you can filter by the organization. They're, for the most part, all part of the network of federally funded parent centers. There's some Cadre items in here, and there's a few OSEP items as well. And right now there are over 40 different parent centers listed. So if we go here, if I'm looking for an item related to due process hearings and maybe a policy or legal guidance item, we can click here, and I'm going to go here to Missouri to MPAC's due process timelines, and if I click on it, the item will actually open up. So there's the item, and you'll note here it's I believe a 4-page item that contains information about timelines and other aspects of due process that, again, the item is really, I think, directed at parents and family members. And I'll go ahead and close that out. And if I pick, I'm going to click back here to preparing for the process. And due process hearings again, and there's 12 different items here. And what I'll note here is that our friends in Georgia at Parent to Parent have developed a number of items, short 2-page fact sheets in different languages. I think the same item but in different languages. related to due process. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to select the Chinese version, and there you'll see the terrific document that Parent to Parent did in association with their state education agency, a nice 2-pager in Chinese. So I'll close that out, and I'm going to go back, and so we'll move over here to written state complaints, and I'll click on preparing for the process, and here you'll see the number of items, and we'll go ahead and select this from the PACER Center. And here is, again, the document they developed on how to file a complaint with the Minnesota Department of Education. And then, again, the entire document is available for you to review. Go ahead and I'll close that out, and I'm going to click back, and so we're just going to show you some different examples here under resolution meetings, under brochures and fact sheets. There's 5 items included, and here we'll look at Maine's item. You can see the range of states that have materials here. It's wonderful. A 2-page item that sort of briefly explains what the resolution meetings are all about. I'll click back. Actually, I'll go ahead and I'll show you SPAN's item here, our friends in New Jersey, and a guide for parents. So a 7-page document. And as we move over, we'll move over to mediation, and I'm going to go ahead and click on now on webinars and videos. There's a few items here, and if we select this one in the middle here, our friends in Delaware, you'll see a web page with a video that you can view here on mediation that they've developed. So really a wide range of materials are available, again, to help people understand and better prepare for these processes. Now, under IEP, I'd indicated before, it's not just about facilitation, it's also about understanding the IEP meeting and how to best prepare. I'll go ahead and click on this one right here. You'll note 18 items are presently located here, and I'll go ahead and I'm going to select the one from our friends in Alaska, the Stone Soup Group, and here's their attractive item brochure on IEP meetings and what to expect. Go ahead and close that out, and we'll just show you a couple more. We'll go over here to parent engagement and early assistance, and I'm going to go down here to resources for new parents where there are 12 items, and I'm going to just go ahead and click this one on the top here. Advocacy Skills, a skill to help you advocate for your child's educational rights. So again, the type of thing that perhaps a family that's new to special ed might find quite useful. Again, understanding that things may be and will likely be different depending on the state in which you live. Here's Advocates for Children of New York and their Advocacy Skills document, again, just a couple pages, but very helpful information to anybody who's using it. And perhaps we'll show one more item here, and we'll go over to the Stakeholder Training, and I'm going to go to Training Materials. Here there are 9 items. And we'll go down to ECAC, our friends in North Carolina, and open that up. And what you see here is a copy of a PowerPoint presentation that they've developed and use in their trainings that reviews alternative dispute resolution. And so you can spend time, if that's you're looking to develop your own PowerPoint or other training materials, you can get a feel for, if you work at a parent center, what other parent centers are using. So that is an introduction to the Parent Showcase. There are, I don't know exactly how many items, well over 100. Some of them are across listed, maybe about 200 items now. We are constantly in search of other items that we think are useful to the folks out there, particularly parent centers and family members and parents. But again, we think professionals can learn a lot. They can see what the parent center in their state is using to educate or inform family members around the different procedures and processes, and they can use the materials themselves, whether it be for the families they're working with or professionals they're working with. I also want to just go quickly back to the home page and point out some other family member materials that Cadre's developed. If you look over here on the left navigation system and click on for family members, you'll see a list of resources that have been developed that are quite frankly directed at family members. These are largely Cadre developed materials. And these also, in many ways, are the only paper-based materials that are available. So again, if you click on a link, you'll get there, and you can go ahead, steps to success. Many of you, maybe all of you, are familiar with this. It's really one of our most popular items. You can go ahead and open it up and download it from our website, but it also is one of the items that we still make available in hard copy. If you'd like, all you have to do is give us a call and contact us, and we'd be happy to ship. Oh, sorry about that. Clicked on the wrong one. We'd be happy to ship that out to you. So that's our list for family members. And then also note here, Espanol, we have most of these items we've also developed in Spanish language. And so those are virtually the same items here in Spanish. So I really want you to know that Cadre continues to make available both through the website and through hard copy means our family-directed materials. So the last thing I'll say before we open it up to some questions is that we are quite interested in receiving, again, materials that you believe would be useful for the showcase. Really, this is an opportunity for folks to share their materials, to learn from each other, to improve their materials, improve their methods of working with families, educating them, making them aware of their options, and helping train them to prepare more effectively. We're all working together ultimately for children and their educational outcomes, and so by working together we can all do this more effectively. So we're particularly interested in receiving Part C specific materials. We're interested in expanding materials that are in other languages or in the languages that we've already included, but the more languages the better, if you will. And of course we're interested in items that perhaps are empty, if you will, that we have an empty cell here. We don't have any what we think are really high quality training materials. We certainly have a lot of material for resolution meetings, but looking for some training materials for resolution meetings, or videos or webinars related to resolution meetings, and some of these other empty cells. We would love to receive materials on that. So we have a little bit of time for some Q&A. And so I think we're going to unmute your phones, or you can type in your question to the chat box on the bottom, or you can ask us any questions that you might have. We might have to, on your screen, bounce back and forth between questions that might come in and the actual showcase online.
If you have a question for Phil about the presentation, or really anything particular to Cadre, if you will, press *6, that will unmute you and ask your question, and then we'd appreciate it if you would press *6 again so that you're back to a muted state.
We have a question from Elizabeth Ridgway. Are there any legal qualifications for becoming an educational advocate? Well, that's a terrific question. I don't think Cadre is in any kind of position to answer that question on a number of fronts. One, we're not really in a position to answer questions related to the law or legal qualifications. And I also might note that there may be differences from state to state. And then also the question, and again, it's an excellent one, it also, an additional question might follow, what do we mean by an educational advocate, or what is the definition of an educational advocate? So I don't know that we can answer that question, but I suspect there are people in the community that could answer that for you, Elizabeth. Thanks for asking it. Oh, and Marshall might have something to add.
So I think that in general, that all you have to do is describe yourself as an educational advocate to become one. And so we have operating in this community, and so I think Elizabeth added an additional qualification. I believe that that there's a real range of people who support parents in IEP meetings. Oftentimes it could be another parent, even simply a close friend, ranging all the way up to, in some cases, attorneys who will go to IEP. So I don't think that there's a certain, as Phil said, set of national specifications. I'm not even aware of any state specifications that describe who an educational advocate is.
Thanks for asking that question. We notice a number of people are typing right now. Sharon Hawthorne asks, can we get a copy of the Cadre Continuum of processes and practices that was used earlier? Yes, you can actually find that on our website, and I'll actually Noella's going to show you, and I know sometimes it's a little hard to follow online, but you can actually print that from our website. She's going to show you real quickly, I believe, if you'll bear with our wonderful use of technology. If you click on the Cadre Continuum, there it is. And this is actually a live database. If you click anywhere on this, for example, I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but if you click on things, you'll get more information. For example, if you click on facilitation right here, you're going to go deeper into the Cadre Continuum. And again, we didn't spend a lot of time with this. We've done this before on webinars. Here's a list of Iep facilitation programs across the country, and to find more information about that, you can actually click and you'll go deeper into more information about Wisconsin. I do want to note that while this resource has been around for a long time, we're actually completely rebuilding the online searchable continuum of processes and practices, sort of updating it for the current thinking that Cadre is engaged in related to dispute resolution systems management. But it is a live system, and again, all of these pieces of it will take you into state-specific or sometimes local-specific examples. Okay, other questions. In order to avoid conflict, I refer to myself as a non-attorney educational advocate. Okay, so there's somebody who's, I think, commenting on Elizabeth's question about being an educational advocate. Thank you for that, for sharing that comment, Loretta. And Jim Girls asking, this may be off topic, but Cadre conferences are the best in the business. When can we expect another one? Jim, the best we can say to you is that we hope to convene another national sometime in the future, and we promise that if we have the opportunity to do that, we will let people know as early as we can. It is unlikely to be in 2013, though. That won't happen. So we appreciate your support, and Jim's been a long-term supporter of Cadre. We appreciate that. Courtney from Arkansas. Did I skip somebody?
Is she from Wisconsin?
No, I think Courtney is from Arkansas. Would it be permissible for a state agency to provide a link to the Cadre Parent Showcase on the state agency's website? Absolutely. We'd be delighted if state education agencies connected family members, professionals, anybody who comes to your website, to the Cadre website. The more people that can access it and benefit from it, the better. So thank you, Courtney. It's a great question, and we're honored by that question. We sort of assume that you think highly of the resource if you'd want to connect to it. So we encourage all of you to connect to any Cadre resource, and certainly the showcase. We have a few more folks typing. Are there specific priority must-do trainings or information parent advocates must have? That's a great question. Again, I don't know that Cadre is necessarily the best resource for parent advocates in terms of training, certification, preparation. We would encourage you to contact your local Parent Training Information Center or CPRC, yeah, Marshall might want to add too.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Most parent centers have rights and responsibilities training and legal trainings that will really help to ground a potential advocate in the sorts of knowledge and skills they need to be successful. So I think Phil's advice is great there.
Thank you, guest number 3, for asking that question. We have a few more minutes. If anybody else has questions or comments, we see some additional typing.
You can also, if you wish to ask a question live, if you press *6, we should be able to hear you, and you could ask the question and then press *6 again to remute yourself.
Loretta asked the question, would we consider doing a presentation at the COPA annual conference? Well, again, we're sort of honored by that question, and I have 2 answers. We're in the world of dispute resolution, so we believe people should always consider options and alternatives before them. And we think that you should contact us outside of the webinar, and we can consider what that might look like together off of the webinar. But whenever an option or alternative is presented before you, we encourage you to consider those. Thank you for asking. She's asking how to do that. You can give us a phone call on 541-686-5060, and it's quite easy to contact us through email, cadre@directionservice.org, and Noella is typing both of those into the chat room. We're easy to find. Our contact information is also available at our homepage. There's actually near the top, there's a little link that says contact, and if you click on that, you'll get a form that you can fill out and submit, and then we'll be in touch typically within 24 hours of receiving that contact form. Other questions or comments or invitations? Our PTI is not an option for me to take full advantage of to provide this to parent advocates. How else could I possibly get support? So I think for our participant who just asked that question, I think I would encourage you to ask us that off of the webinar. Again, you could call us or email us or go to the homepage and click on contact and fill out a contact form, and then we can have a better conversation with you individually and have a discussion around what your needs are and how to best get you connected with the resources that you may be looking for. And so there's our homepage, and we'd be delighted to connect with you outside of the webinar. Any other questions or comments? Again, we're delighted that so many people from all over the country have decided. You're all very busy people, so the fact that you'd spend close to an hour with us, we really appreciate that. And hopefully you find the resource showcase an excellent an excellent and growing resource for you, something that we've built really for the long term. We've built it and we're still working out some technical bugs. It's only been live for a couple months, but we really built it to last well into the future and expect that over time it will grow and grow in terms of the number of items and the kinds of items in there. We're posting some polls that we encourage you to respond to, and with that I'm going to hand it over to our director and leading visionary, Marshall Peter.
Thanks, Phil. I really appreciated the webinar and you laying out how this thing works. We're all very excited about it and appreciate all of the interest. Do please let us know. Take a minute and fill these out. We'd appreciate you doing that. I'll tell you about our next webinar, which is coming up. It will be taking place on February 28th, and once again, from 11:30 to 12:45 Pacific time. We've tried to pick a day of the week where there is unlikely to be conflicts, and also are scheduling it hopefully at a time that works for people both on the East Coast, but also people who are out in Hawaii and way west of us. This upcoming webinar will be entitled Exploring the Cultural Dimensions of Conflict, and it will be presented by Sukh Singh, who is the professor and associate director at Willamette University College of Law's Center for Dispute Resolution. The webinar will explore the cultural dimensions of conflict with an international perspective on exploring, negotiating with, and resolving a cross-cultural conflict. The presenter will share experiences, suggest tools, and provide a set of readings. Sukh teaches arbitration law and advocacy, cross-cultural dispute resolution, negotiation, and mediation theory and advocacy. He has mediated family, cross-cultural, and interreligious disputes and has spoken about cross-cultural conflict resolution in the United States, Europe, and Asia. He has trained judicial officers in dispute resolution, consulted with the private and public sector, and is an active mediator in the areas of commercial, family, and cross-cultural conflicts. He co-chairs the American Bar Association's section on dispute resolution committee on associate issues. We've had Sukh present at past Cadre symposia. He's been very, very well received, and so we think this will be a terrific opportunity to learn more about culture and its effect on conflict. So I want to again thank you all very, very much for your time and for joining us. I would just echo Phil's request. If you have resources that we can dial into the showcase, we would love to have them. It's a great way to get your center's name up in lights and to share your hard work with others so that they can have the benefit. So with that, thank you all very much, and we'll look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Thank you, everybody. Do the poll. Yeah, do the poll. It's still open.